is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 111. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Show, and we call him E, a.k.a. Lee James, a.k.a. Sebastian Drew Easy, a.k.a. Easter Damas, a.k.a. Pat E. O'Daniel, a.k.a. The Fashionista, a.k.a. Chili Willy, a.k.a. Joey Chestnut, a.k.a. Eon Stonkel. E, Merry Christmas. How was your holiday, my friend?
My holiday was quite wonderful. Got to spend the day with you and some other buddies, and we binged basketball, binged good food, binged White Claws, whiskey Cokes, binged the backwoods. It was a great day, man. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday, no matter how you celebrate. Just good to be with people you care about, and a little relaxation. So I'm doing well. A bit of a holiday hangover still going on here. Wishing I wasn't having to be back at work, but I'll take the day off. So it's perfect for me.
Yeah, I mean, we bought some trading cards, some MLS trading cards.
That's
Their
true.
first pack we rip open, Chicharito jersey card. So that was kind of cool. Had a bunch of fun. I noticed you left out binging of the football, the fantasy football, where like the North End Podcast might not exist next week because you and I are facing off in the title game of our two most important leagues, quote unquote important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's not going to go like if we split, that's the best thing like for the world, I think.
Yeah. Or if it's just two ties, two draws.
Yeah, if
walk away with a point.
It's going to be bad news. So it's been nice knowing everybody. Really enjoyed the North End Podcast, and we'll see if it's back next week.
Yes, thank you for all your support.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can go ahead and get into some of the news of the week here. Fairly light episode, I think, in terms of topics, but plenty to talk about on the few items that we do have. And it started with Christmas Eve morning, Verde smoke from Uncle Tony. And I think through this entire morning saga where he drops the smoke, of course, then there's the subsequent hour or two of wild speculation in the Slacks, the Discords, the Twitter, all of that good stuff. And then the news drops a few hours later, but I think you slept through the entire thing again, which is, taking the holiday seriously there. Mm-hmm. And so once you woke up, we already had a new player, and it was indeed Stefan Cleveland. Yeah, that's a goalkeeper. So the reactions varied, I guess, on the spectrum of confused to angry to some combination of the two, bewildered, flabbergasted. I don't know. My immediate reaction was go get that picture of Bali sitting there just super frustrated. and I was just confused. I'll admit it was not what I expected. And I think most folks were, I think I just got hoodwinked. Like I got tricked because the smoke to me just signifies like, all right, we're bringing in this player. There should be some excitement around it. And there is, like, we'll talk about Stefan Cleveland. I am excited to add him to the mix on our depth chart there. But I don't know, man. I was like, oh, it's Christmas Eve. Like this is setting up for, we're going to know this guy. It's going to be at a real position of need, at least, what we thought coming into the day. And then it's a goalkeeper. So there's plenty to talk about now because I don't think we're going to start the season with 4 goalkeepers on the first team roster. But what was your initial thought, I guess, for you, different from those of us who experienced the smoke to signing timeline? When you just woke up and saw, I don't know how many group chats you're in that relates to our favorite team at this point, but when you saw probably 55 messages among your various Austin chats and saw the news, what was your initial thought there?
I've done my best when smoke pops or when we have rumors and potential signings like coming through the pipeline here to temper my expectations with what we're going to be getting. So obviously I wake up to all these messages, I see the smoke, end up seeing that it's Stefan Cleveland being signed, and I the first thing I thought as well was, hey, that's 4 goalkeepers, and the only thing that really went through my mind after that was, well, we're going to see some more movement with one of these guys at some point in time. Who that may be, I am not sure. I know that we're going to dive into that a little bit, but you look at this kid's profile, 29, with the Sounders organization, obviously a top-class organization. They are renowned for the way that they can bring in talent, develop players. And this is a solid backup in the league. And I know that he got some starting time there for a little bit, but when you look at it from the roster construction standpoint, it's just difficult to assume that we're going to be having 4 keepers on this roster when we start the season. And that's when the speculation and the wheels really start to turn. And it's like, okay, who is it? What are we doing? Is it a loan? Is it a trade? Are we moving on from, our starting keeper right now, who again is a fan favorite, almost a cult legend at this point with Stuver for the Austin FC community. So, when you look at it just in a vacuum, I think it's a fine signing. I don't think that this is a bad signing. I'm not angry about it by any stretch of the imagination. Just curious to see what we're going to do. And up until this point, I have believed and still continue to believe that all of these moves are moves that are being made to get to a certain figure, a certain number with our cap sheet to go get some guys that we really want, that we're really excited about potentially in the summer window. I know we have some information on how this team has, readjusted itself and added new players after the Christmas day, and then into good God, and before the start of the season. So we'll get into that. Again, I think he's a good quality depth piece. Is Damian Loss ready for MLS games? I love the kid. We sung his praises all year. He was goalkeeper of the year, next pro. He just doesn't have any caps at the professional level for MLS. So, that's a bit of a risk. And I think that this signing provides somebody who has MLS experience, who's been with a quality club, and just adds a little more depth to our roster here.
Yeah, and let's talk more about Stefan Cleveland and his background, because this is on paper, and we have seen him at Q2 as well, and also in net up there at Lumen Field when we've been on the road against the Sounders. So Stefan Cleveland coming to us obviously from Seattle, where he spent the last 3 seasons. But going back even further to the collegiate career, Stefan Cleveland in 2015 was the Ivy League Defensive Player of the Year at Dartmouth. So a little bit of a brainiac on our hands here in Stefan Cleveland. He did transfer to Louisville for his senior season, where he recorded just a .72 goals against average for the Cards there. So obviously you're going to be a top MLS goalkeeper, or collegiate goalkeeper rather, if you're going to get drafted into the league, which he did in the second round, picked by the Chicago Fire in 2017. He spent his first 2 years in the Chicago system on loan at FC Tulsa in the USL Championship. And over that 2-year span, he did make 5 starts for the Fire. So I imagine they had some sort of like recall clause there where they could call him back when needed. That third year, he was loaned to Lansing Ignite, and in 22 games for Lansing had 7 clean sheets. Following that third season, he was traded to Seattle in 2021 when, if you recall, obviously our first the expansion season for our favorite team. He started 15 games, so just about half the season with Stefan Frey dealing with injuries. And in those 15, so I should say total on the year, 1,350 minutes, 3 clean sheets, and 29 saves. So he is coming to us from Seattle. He was a free agent. So, no transfer fee or GAM being exchanged, anything like that. He is signed on a 2-year deal through 2025 with a team option for 2026. His cap hit last year for the Sounders was $217.5. So more than Matt Bersano right now, but certainly less than Brad Stuver. And he will be occupying a senior spot. So welcome, Stefan Cleveland. Obviously, we know he, again, that 2021 or 2022 match, I think, last year was the one that Frey was out, and that was the Will Bruin goal early for Will Bruin for Seattle. He gets that goal to trickle in the south end, and then Diego finally breaks the seal to tie it up, and that match ended up in a draw, but there were multiple highlight saves in that game from Stefan Cleveland. He's 29, which, when you get to this, the defensive side of the ball, center back and especially goalkeeper, 29 is not as old as it is if we were signing a striker or an attacking mid or something like that. So the reaction too from Seattle fans on social media and like Reddit threads and things like that speak very highly of him. Kind of a number of commenters I saw saying like he is a starting caliber MLS goalkeeper. So like knowing that and knowing that he's on the senior roster, I think just adds further fuel to the fire that like we're gonna move on one of these guys. And I want to talk about some potential scenarios for all three: Brad Stuver, Damian Loss, or Matt Bersano. I think at this point it could be any of them. So I guess you go ahead, pick a goalkeeper that was already on our roster, and let's talk about the possibility, the percent chance that is the guy that's moved on.
Okay, I select Damian Loss.
Okay. Is that your number one? That's your most likely guy that will be moved on here, or what do you think?
No, I was just going based off who I wanted to discuss first here.
Sure.
So Damian, I think percentage-wise, if I had to, I'd say 50-50. I think he's a great loan candidate. You look at these USL clubs as well. We just talked about Stefan Cleveland there, and I'm assuming Lansing Ignite was a USL side as well.
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, so
I think.
Okay, so like you if you're a keeper like Loss or Stefan Cleveland coming up here and stuff like that, you can get some USL experience, get some time under your belt. Obviously, Damian much younger, but you see the potential. He already has the accolades: the Next Pro Championship, the Goalkeeper of the Year, the Goalie Wars runner-up. So, I think that he has value. And again, when we've been looking at the roster moves that this club has been making, the largest caveat is, do we have guys that other people actually want? Like, do we have players that we can actually move on from where it's like we get some sort of return back? So I think Damian fits that profile, and I could easily see him being loaned out to a different club.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about trades for a GAM return or even selling him outside of the league, or not just Damian, but any of the three keepers that we had, I think he's probably unquestionably the most valuable, just given the youth, given the year that he just had, the upward trajectory.
Yeah.
Right. The second thing I did after the Cleveland news broke was okay, let's run a little Twitter poll here. Let's see what the Austin FC fans think. And the question was, which keeper is most likely to not be on the roster come late February? And only listed Loss or Stuver there. Because to me, I guess just getting ahead of myself here, I think Bersano, at that point at least, was the least likely to be moved. I just don't. Well, we'll talk about Bersano. 71% of the 209 votes said that Damian Loss was the one who will be moved on. I think I mentioned to you the other day that probably means it's not him, just because we, as the collective hive mind, we usually get these things wrong. So like, could we be waiting? Because a corresponding move has not happened yet. But I'm like putting the fanfic tinfoil hat on here, which we love to do from time to time. I don't think we signed Stefan Cleveland without something lined up, right?
I agree.
European transfer windows for the Big Five leagues open on New Year's Day, right? And Damian does have Fulham Academy roots overseas. So like he has a little bit of a profile over there right now. I'm not saying or even suggesting that it would be Fulham coming back for him. But I think if it's a Damian Loss move and we haven't heard about it yet, that makes some sense to me if that's what ends up happening, that in the first week of January, he is sold overseas. And I think that would be maybe best for both parties, because like I'm of mind, like you mentioned, he has no minutes at the MLS level yet, right? So I don't think I'm comfortable just throwing Las in to be the starter next year if we had a match tomorrow, right? Obviously he has the ceiling. We've talked about it. We know that his ceiling is one of the best keepers in the league, right? If he continues to develop as he has been here. But like, I don't know, man. Like, I guess let's talk. Could it be Stuver, right? Because Stuver still has some years left, right? For sure. I think at worst, you say he's a top half goalkeeper. I would make an argument that he's top 10 in the league. But I don't think like I feel like he's I don't know, dude. Like, I just don't know how many teams would be going out there and paying a significant sum for a Brad Stuver, because I could see if we move Stuver on, right? And then it's a Stefan Cleveland, 29 years old, has shown, have bright signs throughout his young career here the last 6 years in MLS. Damian Las, goalkeeper of the year. We know a lot of people saying, hey, look what Patrick Schulte just did after he was the next pro goalkeeper of the year. Why not Damian? So having those two guys duke it out over the next 2 months in training camp, if Stuver was moved on, I get that. I just don't know if it's as easy to move Brad Stuver as it would be for a team to get excited about a guy like Damian Las. So what are your thoughts on potentially Stuver being the one that's not here?
Well, look, I don't know. I didn't know the Stefan market or Stefan Cleveland market. I'm going to make the assumption that there wasn't a huge drawing for players, for teams to go sign him. So to me, that signals that, there's something lined up after this that we have already, put in place, have in motion. I don't know if you got to, cross the T's, dot the I's, whatever it may be, to get the deal done. Now you look at Stuver, right? And to me, I think he does have some value. I think if you look at some of these fringe playoff teams who struggled with goalkeeping, I think that he is a player that some teams would have interest in for an upgrade, however slight or large it may be, to get them over that hump, to get them to the position where it's like, hey, man, we want to host a playoff game this year. We have the pieces around. I don't have a team right off the top of my head. But if you have like a veteran team that, that you're just trying to change the trajectory, get into the playoffs, get a win, get some excitement around the club, I think Stuver has real value there for you. He's a proven MLS goalkeeper. And like you said, at worst, right now, top half of the league. Right. So I think that he does have value in this league. And if I saw him being moved, I would anticipate it's an interleague trade. I don't think he's going to be drawing any sort of, loan consideration or purchases from across the pond or down south, whatever it may be. Right. So I do think that there is a market for Bradley Stuver in this league. He has proven to be a very good keeper, a very good professional, a great locker room guy, somebody who's involved in the community. All of those things come into play a little bit when you're negotiating type of things. But at the end of the day, it's the production on the field. And he has plenty of that. Yeah. And I mean, if you even looked at more advanced stats and you looked at the holes we had in our defense last year, the injuries that we were dealing with, the lack of production from that back line and consistency in particular, where we're just leaving this dude, hung out to dry. And it's like, I'm thinking about Cleveland there and his numbers, but propped up by that Seattle defense,
Sure. Good point.
You get moved over here and you're working with our back line. It could be a little different. So I do think Stuver has some value. And, as we have seen, there's one guy really who's untouchable, and it's number 10. And, rumors swirling around Dani. Obviously, the rumors now, the speculation about 4 goalkeepers, who's moving. Stuver is not untouchable. And I do think that after Las, I think it's pretty close with him and Las, who would be the one that we wouldn't be having next year, because I know we did. You did some research on Matt Bersano's dogs.
That was I cannot take credit for the research, but I have seen those. Hard to be more of a degen than me in that respect, but yeah, we'll talk about Bersano here in a second. I did want to, for a moment, put my Brad Stuver tinfoil hat on here. I ran this by you last night. Again, the more I thought about it, the more thin I think it is. But my little brain blast, which is probably better described as a brain fart, but Stuver on Instagram, right, on the 15th of this month, created something called a broadcast channel, which is where he can post updates and videos and links and things like of that nature to anybody who joins the channel as like a fan of Brad Stuver. So I just kind of thought for a moment in my head last night, sitting there on the couch watching some hoops, like, man, what if Brad created that broadcast channel? Because we know how many, pun not intended, the roots that he has spread here in Austin with his community work, his charity involvement, all of that type of stuff, to be able to, because like if he was moved on in a trade, that stuff I don't think ends, at least right away here, right? Like those things are still going to happen at least for a year or two, what have you. So did he create this broadcast channel on December 15th when he heard, hey, I'm going to be moved on in 2-3 weeks or whatever it is, to stay in touch with all of the people who want to be, involved with Stuver and the things he does here in Austin. So again, that timeline, like December 15th, I feel like the move would be announced by now. I don't know. But that was just, we're still in the off season. So that's what I was digging into last night. Any thoughts there?
Not your best theory. Definitely not your worst. So with Stuver, obviously beloved member of the community, that kind of checks out to me. I know that this is like being a part of the Austin community and helping people is part of his DNA. So wanting to stay in touch with this fan base who absolutely loves him, it makes sense to me. And now the other thing that we have to look at, right? Like MLS is strange, man. We've had trades announced 3 months before they happen, months before in advance. And it's like, like we talked about when the Lima rumor started to swirl and circulate, where it's like, can you imagine announcing that you're going to trade a guy 2 months from now, and like how strange that must be. So it's obviously in play here, and maybe they had some sort of internal discussion with him. He understands, a move is being made. I'm not sure how much of that he would be privy to. I would assume his agent would have knowledge on, what's happening behind the scenes with his contract and potentially moving on. So while I'm not going to put too much credence into the broadcast channel thing, I do think it's a very, very real possibility that he's not suiting up for the Verde and Black next year.
Yeah, and then I guess just kind of finishing off with Bersano, right? I think I don't think it's a bad thing to say. Like he's got the least amount of trade value, and in terms of like the return that we're getting, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily Bersano, or that it's not Bersano that's on the move here. Because if there is a team in the market for a second string goalkeeper trying to create some competition in their depth chart, maybe it is, 25K or 50K game for Bersano, who's on less than 200K, is on a senior spot.
We see with these backup keepers that, the league is not afraid to just go, snatch someone off of a different club and bring them in to be a backup, and usually your bigger signings are guys from across the way, with great tenure and stuff like that. So I could see that as well. We didn't get to see him at all. He didn't get one fucking play on the pitch. Like there was nothing that he showed us that was like, okay. And then as the season went on, and progressed, Damian started to move into that conversation where it's like, we need Damian to be our fucking backup going forward 100%. Yeah. And that's partially just because Damian was playing really great, and Bersano was just sitting behind Stuver, not getting any time. Right. So I think you're going to see, man, the more I think about it, I do think it's Stuver.
Okay.
And like you can have Cleveland battle for a starting spot here. Again, we look at the timeline for this team, right? And 3 windows, this window is open. We haven't made the big splash moves that we, have thought we could potentially make. And I don't know if that necessarily works in Stuver's favor, that we're going to be trying to hold on for another season here. And if you can get something in return for him, then I understand it from the business side. It would definitely be awful. It would really suck to see him go. And, just preparing myself mentally, physically, emotionally.
One thing I hadn't thought about is like not replacing, but not having the Stu chant after a save, after anything. You know what I mean?
Not being able to
just
do the
be a
pregame
huge.
warm-up with him in the north end there.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll do a little Stu pregame.
Exactly.
Yeah, man, if we move on from him, it'll definitely hurt. But the more we've, fleshed this out and kind of talked about it, again, from the money standpoint and the roster construction, he's got the most amount of cap hit.
Yep.
And it's like, as well as he played and as great as he played, didn't really matter. Like the results still weren't there. He was playing on his head plenty of games, and there was several games where he was really bad. And I think that's fair. And it still just didn't translate to points for us. So if this is a full rebuild, then yeah, hold on to your hats and just understand that nobody outside of Sebas is untouchable.
The last couple points I wanted to make in the case for Bersano, would shout out Mikey on Twitter, who I think was the only one I saw, at least in our replies, that was like, I think it's Bersano for XYZ. And then the first person I saw this from was Mike Carniola, which I don't know if it was Mike or Steph, because that's the Swoon Tower brand, is they are following all of the dog Instagrams of the players. That's how deep they go over there on Swoon Tower. So I saw it from Mike first that the Bersanos had posted that they were in Dallas on their dog's Instagram, and one of it said, "We're Dallas girls now," on one of the story posts. So if you go to the FC Dallas roster and pair that with their option decisions release, Jimmy Maurer, who was one of their backup keepers to Martin Plas last year, was listed as in discussions, and he has not signed with the team yet. So they only have 2 keepers on their roster. It could be Bersano to Dallas, which would be, I think if Bersano is the one that's moved, that still leaves the door open for a Damian Loss loan next year. I hope he's just too good for the next pro level. He is more than ready for a step up or 2 or 3 in competition.
He needs it.
Yes. So like if we go into the year with Stuver, Cleveland, and Loss on loan with the ability to recall him if we need to, that is the best result, I think, from a talent standpoint on the goalkeeper depth chart.
Not necessarily the cap sheet figures, but yes,
for sure.
The highest quality players of the 4.
Yeah.
Cleveland as your backup, Stuver your go-to. If he struggles, like you said, I'm not going to look. We got smoked with the Sofiane Jafal chatter. Yeah, after we plucked him last year from DC, and all those guys were chatting about how great he was and
right,
all that stuff, and we really bought into that. So I'm not going to buy too much into the Seattle talk, although obviously their fan base is educated and understand the game, and they have a great program. So I get that. But like you said, from a talent standpoint, those 3, Damian on loan, that gives us the best opportunity to be a competent franchise next season.
Yeah, and from the roster perspective, adding Cleveland to the senior roster gives us 15 guys that are here, and 17 total with Gite and Romaña out on loan. From a cap sheet standpoint, as you kind of mentioned there, Matt Bersano's on 132.5. Cleveland was on what would I say 217.5 last year. So if you are able to, let's say we move him to Dallas for $25K GAM, just to be very conservative here, you're almost offsetting the difference between the 2 on that cap sheet, because Damian still costs us nothing, with his homegrown deal there on the supplemental spot. So again, from the talent, from like let's win game standpoint and feel great about our goalkeepers if Stuver goes down, Bersano's the move. I guess let's say this to close this out. Right now, Nerf gun to your head, who is the keeper that is not on the roster next year out of those 3?
Not on the roster, so alone.
Yeah, so it would be gone. Yeah.
My top choice for who's not here next year.
Yeah.
Stuver.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think mine is still Damian. But it's very, we just talked about this for half an hour.
Yeah.
It could be any of them.
I mean, I started this conversation with Damian, and now I've switched to Stuver. So, yeah, dude, this is what we know, right?
Yeah.
One of them is gone.
Yep.
So
it's just not going to be 4.
Yeah. I don't know if you're a big Bersano fan or not. Like if you are, kudos, great. He could be gone. Stuver guys, I'm a Stuver guy.
You are.
Yourself. There's a very, very, very real possibility he's not here.
Yeah.
Something's happening.
The worst outcome, I think, is that the worst outcome is none of them move. That's such a low probability chance. I think the worst outcome for me that I think is semi-realistic, maybe not even, but like if we're loaning Damian out and then we keep all 3 other keepers on the senior roster, I just think that's bad roster building.
I agree with that there, but then you have to even look at the Austin FC 2 club. Like, we're not rolling Spencer Sanderson out there, right? Isn't that his name?
And he's going to be in college. He's going to be at UVA.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, hey, if Damian's on the move, we don't have a keeper there.
Yeah.
So, like, that is also something that would need to be addressed. I just know we're not keeping 4.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all I can tell you, peoples.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on more into the rumor mill here. I think, the Dani Pereira rumors just kind of evolving once again. More sources over the last week suggesting that LAFC is kind of on the outs in the Dani sweepstakes here, leaving Miami, NYCFC, Charlotte, and Columbus from that initial We Are Austin TV report. But then we saw a report from a guy named Nico Moreno on Twitter who confirmed through his sources that the San Jose Earthquakes have made contact with Austin FC about Dani. And he also said his sources told him NYCFC no longer interested, I imagine, for whatever Austin's asking price is. We know it's set to a substantial amount there. So any other thoughts for you on Dani? I'm just ready for that whole saga to be over. If we're losing our boy, how much are we getting back? And where's he going? And then let's move forward. And if he's staying here, staying on the option or giving him an extension. I just hope it's figured out by next Friday when the guys are reporting to training camp.
Yeah, I would love to have this be concluded, not have it hanging over Dani's head. Look, these rumors and stuff that swirl around, man, I don't know how much credence I give them. I've said that word so many fucking times on this podcast. I don't use it elsewhere.
Yeah.
Unless I'm talking about CCR. So with Dani, man, there's no way LAFC doesn't have the pieces to get the deal done. So how interested were they? From our standpoint, is it the most advantageous to move him in the league? Like, if someone else is going to acquire him in the league, is it not assumed that he's going to want to go to Europe, that he's going to, like, even in your own club's best interest, it's a good idea to loan him out to Europe or sell him and recoup all that fucking money. So it's like a team like NYCFC, like, why would they be showing? I don't understand why they would be showing interest outside of the fact that it has been made clear there is some sort of availability with Dani. And as a good team, as a good club, as a good sporting director, you have to do your due diligence. I'd be placing a fucking call to Austin FC and wondering what they're looking for Dani Pereira. Of course. Yeah. Now, does that mean I'm ready to, sell the farm to get this player? I don't know. So with these rumors that have been circulating around, there's just too many fucking names popping around at this point. There's like 7 or 8 teams. It's like, okay, someone would have to make some sort of bona fide solid offer for these other teams to be then taken out of the discussion. So I want that to be resolved unless the return is just fucking immaculate.
Yeah.
I don't want him to be moved. Like, unless it's just something where it's like, well, shit, well, you can't say no to that.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Because again, long term, there's sell potential there. There's loan potential there. Like, there's so much potential there. And if, again, we have been approaching this roster from the standpoint of who are guys that other teams, other clubs fucking want, he's right there. He's top of the list. So that's a big asset to have. And obviously we understand the on-field production and what he brings to this team and how different we look when he's playing sharp and when he's playing with, that controlled aggression and rage that he's just so fucking good at. So unless the return is absolutely incredible for Dani, I don't fuck off all these other little teams. Just like, they're just sniffing around. Like, fuck off, go do something else. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one thing that's important to keep in mind throughout the rest of the window is like it's smokescreen season. Yeah, whether it's a player, it's a team, it's an agent putting out fake stuff to try to drive up prices, whether it's extension talks with Austin, trade talks with other teams, what have you.
$1 million for Johan Romaña.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really like, in our Austin space, for me, it's like when Moon Tower tweets something with sources, or We Are Austin TV tweets something with sources. All right, I'm listening. when it comes up from just like sources from that we don't know, it's like, and then especially, you get a Bogert tweet or whatever, then it's like, all right, something's happening, but it's all still just speculation around Dani. And like, I think the chances are still about the same as they've ever been that he just ends up playing on this option year here next year. And there's a potential to extend him mid-season, something like that.
I'm with you.
This is, I think, a little bit more positive in terms of the rumors floating around. Johan Romaña, rumored to be going back on loan. Club Olympia, obviously, where he's been the last season, wants to extend the loan, but I believe they have some sort of financial constraints or sanctions of some sort by some, I don't know if it's FIFA or their governing body there in Paraguay. And now San Lorenzo out of Argentina is reportedly joining the fray for a Johan Romaña loan, reportedly offering $200K for a 2024 loan with a purchase option at the end of the season. That was first reported by a trio of South American outlets, one that has ties to, I believe, ESPN Argentina. I'm not sure if that $200K can be turned into GAM. Obviously, we know that transfer fees can. I do not know about loan fees. But at the end of it, the bare minimum, getting Romaña off the senior roster to somewhere else for this last year of his deal is of paramount importance, I think, for at least for you and I. And that is a great rumor to hear about.
That is a great rumor to hear about. And $200K, I'm all for it. I'd much rather sell him and just be done with this nonsense than having to just like wonder if we're going to be able to loan him out again next year or like what have you, if we're just going to move on from him. If we can sell him, recoup some cash.
Yeah.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I know that, he struggled early with Olympia there, but did come on in the second half of the season and had some solid performances. Again, he has potential. And like, obviously other clubs can recognize that as well. It's just when you're not doing the bare minimum, showing up in shape and being ready to be a professional player, man, it's hard to get you minutes, brother. And there's just not minutes here for you. We have so much money tied up right now on that back line that there's no space here, bro.
Yep. Well, continuing on through these few news items, we did get confirmation David Rodriguez back with Atletico San Luis in their system. They did a little tweet of him, looked like maybe out on a tarmac somewhere or something. So appreciate everything. Once again, we talked about it when, he kind of said his goodbye, but just good to see that update floating around.
Just the joy that he brought to me personally, being able to watch him at the FC2 club, the excitement that I had, the way he played the game. Always grateful to him. Wish him just a ton of success down there.
Yep. Same here. Today, actually, Footy Headlines, who notoriously, of course, not a journalistic outlet, but they released a list, a rumored list of the clubs getting third kits from Adidas for this season. No Austin FC on that list, so we continue to be teased with you need to sell this many jerseys, yada, yada. No dice for Austin yet, but LAFC, Miami, SKC, the Timbers, and the Galaxy were the 5 teams they listed, and they said that the Inter Miami jersey is Miami Dolphins inspired. So that will, if that is true, that will be interesting to see what that looks like.
Fuck that team.
Which one?
Miami.
Yeah, which one? Dolphins or Inter? Oh. Both?
Nah, I'm cool with Cheetah and Tua.
Okay. Yeah. How about Mike McDaniel?
Oh yeah,
I like him.
I used to not like him just because he's so strange, but
yeah, dude, he's funny.
It's not an act. Like
no,
that's him. So I respect it and I do like him. But yeah, fuck that Inter Miami club, man.
Yeah, speaking of Inter Miami, Luis Suarez officially signs the non-DP deal. So is what it is, man. We don't have that guaranteed L on our schedule, so I ain't tripping.
What he has to be getting some other form of payment income to
maybe. I mean, there's all kinds of legal ways to do that. Obviously, Inter Miami already busted with the Blaise Matuidi thing a few years back, but like, there's just so many ways for them to negotiate external deals that have nothing to do with the salary cap for endorsements and everything down there, just because of Messi and what he can work business wise there. So I'm not super torn up about these guys doing this. Like, I think it's ultimately going to be good for the league. It's just going to be bad for everybody else's win-loss record.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder how much tickets are going to be for season tickets there.
I know there was a ridiculous when they went through there, because obviously we had our bitching about our renewals. Theirs were like outlandish compared to ours, just not even in the same stratosphere. But I get it.
Yeah, shit.
Two more items here. Reentry stage 2 took place late last week, and as expected, not a ton of action there. And when I say not a ton of action, one pick. It was Atlanta trading $50K in GAM to Toronto for their top spot, and they took Derek Williams, who's a center back, was with the Fighting Runes last year there in DC. So Miles Robinson on the outs for Atlanta, grabbing Derek Williams from DC there. And Toronto, I mean, to me, this just like bolsters our business in the good business category for reentry stage 1, because we traded a third round. We traded a third and swapped reentry picks is what it was. Our 5th reentry slot and Cincy's 3rd round pick for the 1st and O'Brien. The Atlanta had to give $50K GAM. I would much rather give our third round pick from Cincy.
Absolutely.
That pick, by the way, was the 85th overall pick. Ended up being a fellow by the name of Fletcher Bank, a midfielder from Stanford, went to Toronto with that 85th pick. So we traded Fletcher Bank for the rights to Hader O'Brien. I will take that for sure.
Absolutely.
And then the last bit here, River Plate, obviously the famed Argentinian side. That's where Seba, that was his first club, I believe. He's got the River Plate crest tattooed on him.
Mm-hmm.
Rumored to play 2 friendlies in Texas, one versus Chivas in Dallas, and then one against Austin FC in January. I would think that it would be at Q2, but maybe the River Plate fan base is so big that they're got like the report I saw was both of these would be in Dallas. So I'm hoping we're not leaving in January for a preseason match in Dallas that we have to drive, because like I want to go to this.
Yeah.
But so what do you think there? Like I'm hoping that it's going to get announced this is at Q2 and we can go see River Plate to take on Austin FC. But either way, it would be a cool watch whether you're in Dallas or in Austin.
Absolutely, it'd be great to see that club. Isn't our stadium bigger
than FC Dallas? I think so, but I think the match against Chivas is at AT&T.
Oh,
I think they're going to play it at Jerry World. Yeah.
Oh shit.
I mean, River Plate's fan base is huge, man.
That's a huge stadium.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, that'd be sweet. Just from the game standpoint, do a little, litmus test. I as terrible as it was in the moment, getting our ass beat by the teenagers of Pachuca. I look back on it fondly, and it's like, damn, that was, it was good. It was good to see those young guys. So I was assuming, River Plate would be of the same caliber.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe it's not at AT&T because we are still, I mean, you'd think Cowboys fans are hoping they're still playing by then. Maybe it's the Cotton Bowl. But I don't think it can take place in Frisco Stadium with Chivas on the other side. Like that's an even bigger fan base in this area. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that rumor, if anything.
Be fun.
We are 60 days away from the opening match at Q2, taking on the Loons. Anything else for you before we get out of here?
Happy New Year, y'all. Be safe, be smart, don't drink and drive. Drink, but don't drive.
Indeed. I second that. And that'll do it for episode 111 of the North End Podcast. If you've got 5 seconds to rate, review, and subscribe to the pod, wherever you get your podcast, we would greatly appreciate it. Of course, name drop the North End Podcast to all of your Austin FC brethren. Help us grow the pod in that manner. And if you're watching on the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. You can hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, on this episode, hit the thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords. Atone for your sins. Wash yourselves clean in the goalkeeper depth chart of Austin FC. We will be back next Wednesday, breaking down everything in the Austin FC universe between now and then, starting the countdown to opening night. Well, I guess we just started it, 60 days and counting. Can't wait to be back with all of our friends at Soccer Church. Have a happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you back here next week on the North End Podcast. Until then, he's E. I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.